Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next edition of GameCamp Webinar. It's great to see you even like in a virtual way. So today we'll be talking about game app improvement based on iterations, based on the prototyping, how to actually understand the user feedback, how to create a persona based on that. Let's welcome to our stage. Let's welcome to our webinar Julius Vencel, who is CMO of PowerPlay Studio. Piotr Miklas, who is Community Manager for GameShare, and Martin Svoboda from Google Gaming Industry Manager. So, guys, please introduce yourself, say a few words about you. Julius?
Yeah. So, my name is Julius, and I'm a Chief Marketing Officer of PowerPlay Studio, and I'm there for 4.5 years already. So, we have on marketing, we have a few departments like ASO, user acquisition, or community management, and like it's my job to look at those things that they should be working as they're supposed to.
Okay, so hello, I'm Piotr. I work at GameShare 1 year there before I had shops with console games, so I'm gamer at heart with some educational background, but basically I manage the community, help out with marketing stuff. So that's basically what I do now.
Thank you both, and I'm Martin. Hi, I'm with Google for over 4 years now. And what I do is that I work with high potential clients from Czech Republic and Slovakia and try to accelerate their growth. So looking forward to these presentations.
Thank you. So as always, please join our event on Slido, because on Slido you can actually enter the discussion, ask the questions, and add anything that you would like to ask the presenters, and then during the session and after the session, during the discussion, we'll actually touch the topics that you would like to ask. Even right now, please join Slido, where actually you can add right now information, which country are you connecting from. So we'll just wait 30-40 seconds to give you the chance to add the information. Which country are you connecting from? Czech Republic. Again, you go to the Slido and then you write GameCamp as the name of the event. We have Czech Republic, Poland, Germany, with other countries. We have Slovakia, Brazil, France, United Kingdom. Okay, we have another ones going on. Yes, some more people from Czech Republic, from Poland, from Slovakia. Okay, great. So please keep adding that, and then please save the date for the next events. So the next event about the predictions in user acquisition will be on 13th of August. All the different events and the different GameCamp webinars, you can actually find information about them at GameCamp or like Google for Startups website. You can actually check out the all information at the website. So without that, please, let's go actually to our first presenter today. Let's invite to the stage Julius, who will be talking about his experience and experience of his company, how they actually were learning from the mistakes, how they actually were adjusting their processes, and by that the games and the based on the experience they got and what on one side the bright side, but on the other hand the mistakes they did on their journey to getting to the market. Julius, the stage is yours.
All right. So hey everyone. Like as I mentioned, my name is Julius, and I'm a CMO of PowerPlay Studio, one of the largest Slovak studios in game industry, and also it is #1 indie studios in Slovakia. So first of all, I would like to thank the Google guys, and especially Mariusz, who is the mastermind behind the GameCamp, to continue and do these webinars during the COVID-19 situation, and also for having me here today. Now, as you can see, like I have a very distinctive topic, and that's how to learn from mistakes, test and prototype new ideas, like how we change internal processes to overcome our problems. I might have a slightly longer intro, but please bear with me. Before I jump into it, a bit about us. The company was founded in 2007, which means like we are in the industry for more than 13 years. We are from Slovakia, and our headquarters is in Bratislava. And also we are an indie studio, which means we have no investors whatsoever. And we have approximately, give or take, 60 people. And everything is done in-house by ourselves, from game design to development to data analytics and user acquisition and so on. And despite that, like we are still growing year over year in terms of revenue, which is obviously a good thing, making almost 0.43 million in 2019. And like we are focusing on niche market, and that's why all of our games are in sports category so far, although we have some non-sports prototypes in the pipeline. And we have around 15 million of users from all over the world across 16 games at the moment. Now, I was standing on the Google for Startups podium last year in the beautiful city of Warsaw, and in front of you guys at the 6th edition of GameCamp, and speaking about how we doubled our monthly revenue. Now, I was presenting what the majority of the companies are presenting, and that is a success. I did, however, something slightly different to most companies and received positive feedback for that. And that was being transparent and sharing the real data. So I will be sharing today like how we completed the Google for Startups Accelerator as the only Slovak company. I can be presenting like how we achieved year-over-year growth of 36% and making a 4.24 million in 2019. I could be talking about like how we released a new athletic game a few days ago, and it already has 1 million of users just within 3 weeks. So being the #1 game in sports category in many countries on Google Play and App Store, and also the real athletes are sharing the app, including Olympic gold medalists. But I decided to choose a different approach again, and I want to talk about like I don't want to talk about success today because like guess what, like there is not a single company in the world that doesn't have any problems and never makes any mistakes, right? Like same goes for us as individuals. Like we are learning far more from our mistakes and failures, but yet very few people are sharing them. So when we are on the podium and speaking about success, there is a trophy on the picture. Like usually there is a but, and the but is this messy line consisting of mistakes, failures, and problems. But we choose not to talk about it, right? Like it's just statistics and carefully picked data, so they will look good, and we are quiet about the problems behind the curtain. So Mariusz is often comparing things with like bodybuilding and fitness, and I would like to continue with this tradition as I love it. When I was young, there were lots of kids looking at those bodybuilders on the cover of magazines and talking about how they want to look just like them, like because it should be easy, right? We are just going to work out for a couple of years, eat a bit cleaner, and voila, there's a new Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you see the disappointment in their faces, like when after years and years of dedication, they will discover this messy line on the picture, that those fitness guys in the magazines, like they usually look like that only on the contest, only on the day of the contest or the photo shoot, that they are not drinking for 2 days before that, and they are dehydrated just so the muscles and veins will show up better. And, you know, like they are on a crazy diet. Also, like most of them, they have to supplement with not so legal stuff, if you know what I mean, and so on and so on. Like basically, you won't look like that unless you start doing these things. And this is very misleading for the young kids because like no one told them at the start, you know, like they didn't know about the problems, like because no one was talking about the problems. So like the majority of the companies are maybe even unintentionally doing this to the smaller ones in a similar way. Like it's super misleading for the smaller companies that are trying to recreate the same thing, like because it looks so easy, right? Like you just do this and look, there's a success. But actually it's not. Like, so I decided to talk about our problems and failures and how we are trying to figure them out. First of all, I would like to describe our current situation and what are the circumstances that are leading to problems. It's true that we have 16 games. However, most of these games are really old and are not generating significant revenue for the company. So we started developing web platform browser games back in 2007, and they were called managers. Well, surprised because they were manager games. And we started cloning the first one, which was a hockey manager, into different sports, and thus creating the first generation of our games. The second generation came with the Facebook Canvas platform, and they were called Duels. But actually, as you can see on the picture, the revenue of the company generated by the third generation of our games called Mania. First one was a Biathlon Mania in 2015, which was later on cloned to tennis. And when I say like clone, it's not like we are copy-pasting the game and just changing the graphics. Like even though the game is based on the previous one, there are always like major improvements compared to the older one. So Ski Jump Mania 3 was born from tennis in December 2018, and that is why majority of the revenue in 2019 is coming from this project, because we were advertising it heavily during the winter season 2018 and 2019. And now athletics game was just released a few days ago, and it looks promising already, hoping to grow in 2020 again. So I know you're confused probably, like what is the catch? Where is the problem? Like you are growing this way, so why not continue? Like this Mania branch that we are cloning, back in the day, these games were developed primarily for the web platform as browser games, and also for the Facebook Canvas. Since not only the audience, but also the performance as well for these kinds of games is decreasing year over year, we realized in 2017 that we have to enter the mobile market in order to survive. So, and it was actually a great move. But, like, see, like there is a but they're based on old and outdated technology. Like it used to be Flash, but since it ended, it was moved to HTML5. This also means that the mobile application for these games are not native. It's pretty much the HTML5 web code ported to mobile. And it used to be optimized for PC version as well. Like, for example, Biathlon, tennis, and ski jump, all three of them, the gameplay on mobile is not as optimal as on the browser, and that's not good since the majority of the traffic is from mobile. Although we tried to address this issue in the new athletic game and optimize everything towards mobile devices, which was, again, a major improvement, but it's still not a native application. Now I believe like many of you are well aware of the Newzoo charts and predictions. The global games market was at almost 150 billion in 2019, and that is still growing year over year, especially the mobile market that's generating almost half of that revenue. So that's great news for all of us working in this business, however, not so great for the browser games. So the share of the browser games in 2019 in the global games market was actually just 2%. And that was a decline of -15 year-over-year, and it will continue to decline. So as I said, like the audience for the web is getting smaller and smaller, while the mobile market is still growing. So the majority of the traffic is from mobile devices, and the gap is just going to be bigger and bigger in the near future. It's the same performance-wise. Like most of you guys, you know me, I'm transparent, and I will try to share the real data. So here we go. Like these are the average retention numbers for Biathlon Mania, who registered on the web platform in the year 2017. So they are playing on the browser. You can see day 1, day 3, day 7, and day 15 as an average of all those users. Now here's the same for the year 2018 and 2019. And these are the numbers since January 1st, 2020. So as you can see, browser is not the future, unfortunately, but mobile probably is. We confirmed this with the tennis game where when we were developing it, we were focusing too much on the web platform, not even considering the application. Then in 2017, after what we can call a success of a biathlon app, like we released the application for tennis as well, but it just was not working. So we were left with almost pure browser and canvas game, and we just weren't able to scale it anymore on these platforms. Like the daily active users never passed 15K, and slowly but surely the performance was decreasing, like similar to what I just showed you on the previous slide. Now it's getting to a point like that it's just not even possible to acquire new users for these older games and be profitable. So these old games are one by one left as they are, and only thing happening there is live ops in terms of events like I don't know, Halloween or Christmas, etc., which boosts the revenue stream a bit. Now these games like Biathlon and tennis are pretty much living only from the older and previously acquired users, not the new ones. So they will of course churn sooner or later, and at some point, and which you can see is already happening, not only on the declining daily active users, but on the revenue as well. Like Tennis Mania generated 34% less in 2019 compared to the previous year. However, like the future is not so bright for these clones even on mobile. Like what you see here is the honeymoon phase actually after the release of the Ski Jam Mania 3 in 2018. Now it's a new game, so everything is super cheap. Like CPI is very low because the click-through rates are off the charts, and like everyone is seeing the ad and the game for the first time. So the early adapters are just flooding the game, and ROAS is super great because the equation LTV is bigger than CPI, but not because the LTV is that great. It's more because the CPI is being so low. So there are tons of users for super cheap. So what you see here is the return on ad spend graph and retention for one of the early campaigns via Facebook user acquisition on Android platform. Now the blue line is return on ad spend on a particular day, and the flat orange one indicates 100%. So if the blue one crosses the orange one, it means you've reached return on ad spend and you are pretty much profitable since this moment. This occurred on the 57th day, and now today is more than 500%. And the green line, by the way, is the number of active paying users on a particular day that came from this campaign. Now, this is happening a few months after already. So after a few months at the end of the winter season, like the retention is decreasing already, and that affects the lifetime value a bit. CPIs are higher, which means the return on ad spend is somewhere within a year, and the performance is slowly decreasing as the game was working mostly in geos where ski jumping is popular. So this means we were limited to a few countries like Poland, for example, or Norway, Germany, or Finland. And after spending like 700,000 euros on user acquisition within just few months on few countries, like most of the users interested in ski jumping from these countries are already in the game. So honeymoon phase is pretty much over and growth stage begins. And unfortunately, this is what happens not only after a few months, but after a few years. So this is campaign after more than a year. But after the honeymoon phase was over, since the growth stage, we switched towards Google UAC and for in-app action optimization. And it was a success, actually. Like, we were profitable again and able to scale it more than Facebook. However, same goes for Google, unfortunately. Like, this is how an in-app action optimization campaign looks like after a year has passed. And that is not a small amount that was invested here. Like, that's 120,000 euros right there. Like, there is a chance that this might reach 100%, but it's going to take more than 2 years to happen, and that is just unacceptable for the cash flow of the company. So you see, like Norway, Poland, Finland, or Germany, like these countries are not unlimited, and especially not of users who like ski jumping. So since it's so niche, like the broader audience is just not interested. So not only there are very specific and limited number of users who we need to target, but at the other factors like seasonality, outdated technology, not so optimal gameplay of the application, like web platform is declining, Facebook games are ending, by the way, and what you get is that a game that you actually can compete in the long run against mainstream native applications. Like, even if you decide to do paper engagement campaigns and try some incentivized ad networks, like the niche HTML5 web platform app is just not appealing to the broader audience, and the users won't stay there after completing the task for the reward, even if it takes weeks to do it. So yes, like, we are cloning the Mania branch and generating money, and it's still worth it. Like, don't get me wrong, it is still worth it and we are profitable, but we cannot do this forever. Like, I can't say if it's going to happen in 2 years from now or in 5 years, but it's going to happen, and sooner or later, like, this won't be profitable anymore. So cloning these Mania games is more of a short-term solution, like not a long one. It's like you will take some pain medication for, like, when your arm is broken, right? Like, sure, as a short-term solution, it might work, the pain might go away, but you are not dealing with the cause of the problem. You are dealing only with the side effects. So you still have a situation that you actually have a broken arm. So we actually knew this even a few years ago, and we thought we had the perfect solution for our future problem. Our very first mobile-only and native application made in Unity. So in the year 2017, like, we started developing a game called Ski Legends. So this is how the game looks like. And don't get me wrong, like, the idea was great, but we kind of failed on the execution part. Yeah, I said failed. Unfortunately, like, we have made a difficult decision to discontinue the further development of this game shortly after its release in the beginning of this year. Now, why is that? If you take a look at the average retention, there's the day 1, day 3, day 7, and day 15 retention on the Android platform. Like, you can notice, well, it starts fairly all right. Like, there's a big drop. It has problems to retain users. Like, Ski Legends will lose most of the users within the first 2 weeks, and there's the D90, of course. So yeah, almost no one is playing it in the long term. The meta game is not very good either. So basically, like, even if you like the game, like, there isn't much to do in the long run. So what's happening is that on a small scale, you can be somewhat profitable, but you can also see that the curve is flattening later on. And because of those active paying users are churning, and that's the green line. So in the long run, there will be no one left to play and pay. And the second problem is that that this game is not scalable. Like, by increasing the scale, the game is not profitable anymore, and we can't reach return on ad spend with the increase of CPI. Like, the users' lifetime value for the period of those 2 weeks while they are still playing is just not enough to cover the user acquisition costs. So how did this happen? Like, where did we make a mistake? Like, to make a long story short, like, we did fail right from the start, and we were making mistakes on almost all fronts of the development cycle, from switching project managers to Unity. Like, this was our very first Unity project, and no one in the company like had experience with Unity. That's why we thought like it's just going to be the same development cycle like the Mania branch, you know, like just in new technology. So less than a year, and the solution to our future problem is out. However, like, we were wrong and paid the heavy price for it. We kind of bit off more than we could chew, and we hired the wrong people at the beginning of the project. Like, rather than focusing on quality, we focused on cutting expenses, and we hired juniors that weren't that experienced either instead of seniors. Like, a mutual dissatisfaction for both sides like led to pretty high fluctuation of these Unity programmers. Like, six of them left during 2.5 years of development, and they were pressured from our side to release it as soon as possible. And since most of them weren't experienced, like, this led to many more problems. For example, like, the Unity architecture of the game was in very, very bad shape because of this, and we had a very high technical debt, and the whole project was a mess in terms of code, assets, etc. You can call it spaghetti code, and there were no like coding guidelines, technical documentation, or anything like that. The code reviews were insufficient, and a new build was made even after a small bug appeared in the game. So we lost a few hours of work every single time. So not only the build process wasn't effective, but like, for example, the graphic designers never worked with Unity before as well. And this all led to we just couldn't give exact estimates on when the certain tasks are going to be done, and like when to soft launch or even global launch. Like, there was some bad decision making involved as well, like continuing with the code after the prototype version for the development, which added problems on top of already a very bad technical shape. And the quality of game design actually suffered as well because of this, because there were lots of compromises, as making any changes like to the game was like very, very hard. Like, our seniors Unity programmers didn't even know some parts of the code, and they were afraid to touch it and change it. Like, it was done more than 2 years ago by people not even working for the company anymore. So there is no one even to ask about it. So add things like absence of any game design documentation, no prototyping of mechanics, or no end game mechanics, and like, you get a snowball spaghetti that it's just too late to stop.
Sorry, if you let me ask just 2 questions, Julius. One thing is, you're describing the amazing story that you went through, and there are many pivoting moments in the lifetime of your company, you know, going from browser to Facebook Canvas and then to app. What were the decisions? What were the drivers of the decisions to basically? It seems like you switched the whole company's direction from day to day, and basically you had to restructure the whole team around the new project. So what were the drivers for this change during the lifetime?
Yeah, actually, it wasn't like from day to day, as you said. Like, it looks like when I'm presenting it, but actually this was a period of years that was happening. And like, well, the drivers, it was mostly what I'm presenting. Like, you know, like the browser and web platform is just declining year over year, and we just saw this data. So we tried to, you know, like Also, like there's a different companies, like for example Pixel Federation, that were like in neighborhood from us, and we saw like they were releasing, for example, Diggy's Adventure on mobile, and they have very, very great success with it. So we tried to do the same thing actually. So yeah, like we saw like mobile was on the growth, like it was growing year over year, and browser was declining year over year. Also, the traffic, majority of the traffic was from mobile, so that was the driver.
Yeah.
Like there is no reason why not going mobile.
Thank you. And one more question, and I feel free not to share, but I just want to ask you, with the last mania, the skill agents, it seems like you're already calling it a failure, but can you tell us like how much did it cost you to do this learning before you start changing the processes in the company again?
Yeah, you mean the Skill Agents game?
Yeah, Skill Agents, sorry.
Yeah, well, the development actually, it depends like on how many people are working there in the team. Like in the first year, there were like 6 people in Skill Agents team, and the next year, the team got even bigger, and another 7 joined, so a total of 13 at the same time. So since we were developing it for far too long, and that shouldn't have ever happened, like more than 2 years, with expensive people, like like Unity programmers and 3D graphic designers and so on, like it was more than €1 million, but not far off.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. And before I let you go back to the presentation, I just want to remind everyone who's watching to go to Slido and ask the questions. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so I'll continue. So we wanted to learn from this and share this with you guys, so you don't have to repeat the same mistakes. So how to make sure that this will never ever happen again? We cannot allow just developing a project that costs more than $1 million, as I said, in a period of more than 2 years, and then it's just find out it's a failed project, right? So like, sure, you can start doing things properly right from the get-go, like make sure you scratch the code after the prototype version and start clean for the development. Make sure there is a technical documentation, there are coding guidelines, make time for routine code reviews, and the list goes on and on. But the biggest question is still unanswered, like how to make sure that the project won't turn out as a failure, like how to shorten the development and how to reveal the true potential of an idea as soon as possible. Like, is there any way to test the idea and how, like, right from the start that one day this could be a very successful game in the future? Like, we changed and improved our internal processes and came up with prototyping process to answer these kind of questions. So just a quick summary of what the prototype actually is. Like, prototype is an early sample, a model, or release of a product built to test a concept or process. So basically, it's a draft version of a product, or in our case, a game that allows you to explore your ideas and show the intention behind the feature or the overall design concept to users before investing time and money into development. So there are many advantages why we are prototyping, like looking at the idea from different perspectives, considering different solutions, testing the concept with potential users, and it's being inexpensive and fairly quick to make, so short development time. Like, but the biggest advantage is that you can reveal if the idea has potential or not even this early. Like, if it doesn't, well, just abandon that idea and come with another concept. Like, you just save like millions of euros and time for developing something that probably won't work. So another great thing about the prototype, is that you can test the concept on users already in this stage. Like, as you probably most of you know, like very rarely is the game 100% like you designed right from the get-go. Usually there are like tons of iterations, changes, and improvements being made after testing. And imagine you want to, for example, I don't know, choose a method of controlling and commanding units in the game. Like there are multiple choices. Like which one is the best for your game? Like the prototype lets you do these iterations and change it very early stages prior to the development. So it is much, much easier to iterate and improve the prototype rather than the official game in later stages, thus saving you tons of time and money because you are avoiding all of this. So prototyping also allows us or allows you to develop multiple projects at the same time. And that is what we are doing at the moment. Like the biggest mistake we did was relying on a single product, or in other words, like putting all eggs in one basket. So we were developing skill agents for 2.5 years. So not only was the production cycle for too long, but there was zero risk diversification, therefore high risk of failure, and that's exactly what happened. Like we didn't prototype, the team was big and expensive, and there was some emotion-based decision involved as well. Like we think this is going to be okay, it has potential, but based on what exactly? Like try to avoid assumptions and look more on data. Yeah, like if you're developing a single project and relying on it like we did, you can't really afford killing it either, because even if it's underperforming a bit, there just isn't another one to turn to. So now, thanks to the prototyping process, we are developing multiple projects at the same time. The production cycle is short. You can diversify the risk, and you can prototype very fast with a very small and inexpensive team. Like for example, like just one game designer and one Unity programmer made a functioning mobile one-on-one real-time multiplayer PvP game in 1.5 months using the free Unity assets. So you can, of course, test and iterate the game on real users already and make some data-driven decision based on your KPIs. The great thing about it is that you can kill the project if it's underperforming and doesn't have potential, because you are developing multiple smaller teams working on multiple projects. So you are not relying on this one. Plus, there are already other ideas waiting to be prototyped in the line. So you are just basically choosing the game that you already know will have the most potential, and then you start developing it. So in real life, it looks something like this. Instead of having an idea, project A, start developing the project A and releasing a project A, which, oopsie daisy, it's failure. You have multiple ideas for project A, B, and C. You start prototyping, and then you can decide, for example, that, well, project A is underperforming, and we can kill this idea and abandon it. Well, project B and C are much better, but for example, the B is the best one, so you start developing it. Well, for example, you can keep the C as a backup, and the next project for development after the release of B. But meanwhile, you are already prototyping different ideas to see like if you can find something even better than the option C that is waiting in line. So, but how do you know, like, how do you actually get from an idea to prototype, right? So how it works for us is that first there is an idea. We have an idea of a possible game, like what kind of genre it is, how the gameplay should look like, etc. Then we make a comprehensive analysis and market research, like what is the selling point here? I don't know, what are the competitors in terms of downloads, seasonality, revenue, rankings, geos? What is the difference about this game compared to the competitors? Like, what are the genre and popularity ratings? What are the retention and CPI benchmarks for the genre? Who is the main audience? Like, what's the business potential? What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of this project? What about features, metagame, monetization, of player psychology? How's the timeline of the prototype going to look like? What are the resources we need, etc., etc. Basically, with more data and analysis, you can come up the better, and you can already have a clue, like if the findings support the idea or not. For example, like if someone comes up with, I don't know, a hardcore MMORPG genre and only with in-app advertising monetization, it's probably not a good idea from the audience and monetization side or point of view. And this would most likely won't make it through to the prototype stage. So let's say you prove the idea and you want to proceed to the prototype version. Like, now comes the tricky part. Like, how do you know what to prototype? Like, what actually is the prototype here and what to test, actually? So the way we are doing it at the moment is that we have a design thinking phase at the beginning. We are putting all of the game mechanics and features on a simple sticky notes, or you can use Google Sheets or whatever, and try to think of many as mechanics as possible, and one per sticky note. Mariusz is here.
Julius, right now you are working on a few projects at the same time. Previously you had extremely, you were focusing on one project. Right now you're working on the bigger number, but what is this number? You're working at the same time on 3 projects, or rather 15, or you are going after another extreme? And what is the size of the teams that are really enough to work on those independent even projects?
Yeah, well, at the moment we were working on clone of Mania. That was one team. That was athletics. That was just released, and the team was, I think that was the biggest team so far. Like, it was maybe around 15 people or so on. And we have 2 prototypes running at the same time that are actually not sports games, and the teams are very small. Like, one of them is the product I mentioned you, and the team was only 1 game designer, 1 Unity programmer, and that was the mashup of the 2 genres. And there is another game that's being prototyped. That team is slightly bigger, but it's, I don't know, 4 people, let's say. So yeah.
Thank you.
3 projects at the same time at the moment. Any more questions? No, I can continue. All right. So then what happens is that we have these features and mechanics of the game on the sticky notes. Now, we put them on X and Y axis, where the horizontal axis are factors or mechanics that are known on the right or unknown on the left. The vertical axis are factors either critical for your game, that it won't be possible without them, on the top, or not so critical for your game. So if they are skipped, it's not a huge performance issue for the project, on the bottom. Now, example. Quadrant on the bottom right are well-known and not critical mechanics of the game. Could be, for example, push notifications. We all know and use push notification. There isn't any reason why they shouldn't be working in your game either. And it's also not a critical factor for the game, meaning you can release the project without them. In other words, this is not a mechanic that the game massively relies on, and it is also a well-known mechanic, so there is no point of prototyping it, or this being part of the prototype. While on the top right corner, those are crucial mechanics for the project. Could be, for example, loot boxes or gacha or any other core mechanic of the game which heavily impacts the performance, but they are still well known, meaning no point of prototyping them. The bottom left corner are less known or unknown factors, but not critical for your game, so we can still release the game without them and it will work. Which brings us to the top left corner. Those are the factors that are unknown and also critical for your game, meaning you have no idea how they will perform, but it is crucial part or core mechanic of the game and those you want to test. Like everything that is in this quadrant should be included in the prototype or is the prototype itself. Like as an example, the game I was mentioning, we are making a real-time multiplayer PvP game that is a fusion of two genres we haven't seen anywhere else before. So for us, like the one-on-one battle and actual PvP gameplay is the prototype, because like we have no idea how that's going to perform. And the success of this project relies on this. Like even if this is not working, like doesn't really matter what kind of metagame you and mechanics you are putting on top of that, it's just not going to work. So if you know what to prototype, the next step we are doing is paper prototype. Like, okay, like not every game or concept can be turned to paper prototype, but if it's possible, like then do it. Like it takes just a few hours to create one, and you can already test on real people and iterate early concepts in this stage. So yeah, like a paper prototype enables you to visualize alternative design solutions, is easy to create, and saves you both time and money because you are making changes and improvements before the actual development. So where actually those changes will be more costly and time consuming. So this is actually the quickest and fastest way to get feedback. Yeah, like yes, there is no hard data like retention or anything less, but what you are testing mostly here is the fun factor. Like, is it fun to play? If nobody wants to play like this paper prototype and finds it boring in this stage, like there goes your first indicator that something is probably not right. But for example, like if you tell your test subject like, hey, can you please play with us for at least 10 minutes, like this new crazy idea that we have, and people will not only enjoy playing it and give you feedback, but they will forget about the time limit and they will play way beyond those 10 minutes. They're already playing it because it is fun and not because they have to. So after the paper prototype comes the digital one. What we did with the project I was mentioning, with the two genres matching up, was creating a small team consisting of game designer and Unity programmer for the concept phase one. Like, they made a real-time PvP multiplayer mobile prototype in 1.5 months, and we were able to test it. Like, okay, like our intention at first was making a series of playtests and UX testing with uninvolved test subjects, like completely outside colleagues or family. But unfortunately, the pandemic happened, and so we did this online as an internal test. But there are, of course, like many ways how you can do playtest or even UX testing, even in online environments, third-party tools that allows you to record and receive feedback from test subjects from different countries, etc. But we decided to stick for the internal test before testing on real users. So you are observing people playing it for the first time and collecting feedback during the playtest itself with the think out loud method, where they were saying out loud what they are thinking, emotions, obstacles, how do they feel, how do they understand or not understand what is going on, etc. And this is actually the best feedback we could get, because you suddenly realize that the real users just don't understand the controls, for example, and are doing something completely different that you intended. So you are already iterating and redoing things this early, thus saving you tons of money and time, because you avoid all of this in later stage of the development cycle. And then there was also a form that we sent to the test subjects to fill it out, where we received additional feedback and made iteration according to it already. So the second part of the concept phase one is releasing the prototype game as a real application for external testing, which pretty much is very similar to soft launching already. However, it's still just the prototype one-on-one PvP match as a concept, without any meta or monetization or whatsoever. The only thing that is happening here is that the team got slightly bigger, and there is now also a graphic designer working on concept art and slight visualization upgrade of the assets for the test. Then we can measure the real hard data and KPIs like retention, number of games played, etc., to decide if the prototype can proceed to another stage or will be killed. If it's going to make it, then there is the concept phase 2, which is a vertical slice. We take this prototype, add just a very basic meta on top of that to see if it works. That's going to work. Then you scratch the code and start development for real. From this point, the process is pretty much what everybody knows. Development, like technical launch, retention, monetization, soft launch, global launch, or whatever works for you. So yeah, and that is pretty much it. Just to recap, like I was talking about our situation first, like how we are cloning the Mania branch based on an old web platform browser games, and how the future is not so bright if we continue in this direction. We thought we had the perfect solution in a mobile-first native application called Skill Legends. Unfortunately, we made many mistakes in the development process, which caused the project to be a failure. I've even described like what kind of mistakes we did and how to avoid them. And then it was the prototyping process that was improved as an answer to the situation that never ever happening again in the future. So I was talking about how to test an idea and what to prototype based on the X and Y axis of known, unknown, critical or not critical factors. So that's pretty much it. I'm not saying like this is the right approach. This is just our approach at the time or at the moment, and based on our failures. Like hopefully, like you can take at least something useful from this presentation and avoid many of the mistakes we made. So yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Julius. One question from me still. It's amazing the process that you're now put in place, where you really make sure that the game is ready before you go out and start scaling. But do you have any like general rule of thumb, to tell us when the project ready to go into the next phase, and at which phase you introduce external feedback to it when it goes out of PowerPlay Studio to the real world?
Like, always, like the answer is it should go out in the best shape as possible to, like, so you don't waste the potential high LTV users on a like not finished project. But sometimes you just cannot, for example, from, I don't know, financial perspective or something like that, you just cannot wait anymore and you have to release it. So yeah, the ideal way is to wait to be completely ready, but sometimes you just cannot.
And at which stage are you introducing external testers?
Well, external testers meaning we call someone, or do we just do the soft launch? Like
basically, you're developing the game from the world, from Bratislava, Slovakia, from the studio, right? So at which stage you want to get feedback from the actual test markets?
Yeah, like without company, like outside of company and stuff like that. Yeah, like as an example, again, for the project that we are prototyping now, the mashup of two genres, we did the paper prototype. Then in 1.5 months, we did this internal test, and now we are actually we want to release this to like as an application for external testing. So something like a soft launch, but it's still a prototype. So as quickly as you can, because like you want to see like if you're on the right track or not. Like if not, like make changes as soon as possible, because like that is what saves you time and money rather than doing these changes in later stages of the development. Like prototype is something like you don't polish, like you don't wait for it to be perfect, like you don't want it to wait for the graphics to be better. Like it's something that the primary objective is to find to find out as quickly as possible, like if the idea and concept is good or not. So as quickly as possible.
So it's finding the right balance between the motto "better out than ready," better out than perfect, and having the perfect game for the scale. Right?
Yeah.
Somewhere between there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I would move to Slido now because we have a couple of questions there. We have questions from Max. What kind of analytics do you put into the store prototype?
Once again.
What kind of analytics do you put into the store prototype?
Well, as I was mentioning, like all those, like after idea, I was talking about like there's an analysis and market research, like all those things basically.
Yeah,
you can come up like third-party tools, like I don't know, Epony. And
I think the question may relate to the next question, where Adam is asking, what made you discontinue the project? So maybe the analytics is referring to like what type of KPIs to set that makes you decide whether to kill the project or whether to continue.
Yeah, like this is actually the hardest question like we have to deal with, like, and also it depends on the project to project, because like every game is unique and it has like different things of measuring things. Like I don't know what, for example, this prototype, like we can measure number of games played, but what about, I don't know, there are always different KPIs to different games. So this is really a tricky part, and yeah, we haven't figured it out yet. But after you release an app like Skill Legends, you know when to kill it, because for example, yes, we wasted more than €1 million, and the user acquisition is not profitable anymore, and even though like any more changes and continuing on this project would just add the cost. So
got it. Thank you so much, Julius. Thank you for the presentation, and we will have more questions to you at the end for the Q&A. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And now is the time to introduce Piotr, who is the community manager at Gamesture, who will tell us more about how they are making user personas in their biggest projects called Questland. Piotr?
Yes. Yeah. Hello. Thank you. Hi. How are you doing? Yes, I'm a community manager at Gamesture, currently in the team of marketing. Very good place to start, and I will share with you my presentation of players' personas. So let's have a go. Yeah. So that's a standard lineup and an introduction to my user profiling. The idea I came up, let's say, 6 months ago, so it's still fairly fresh. And the amount of data I have to sift through, it's really huge thing. So it's still sort of 80-90% ready, but I still want to share it because I think I have some nice findings. I was actually, when I was researching how to start, I couldn't find any user or player personas for me just to have a benchmark from. So I had to start it from scratch. I did find some examples in e-commerce, but they are a bit different. And obviously, each personas would be different for a different game or app. So these are basically, they are connected to my app or to our app, to Questland, which is an RPG type game, but I think the similarities would flow across as well, across different genres. First question you might have, do the personas take into account the free-to-play players? Well, my answer is no, not really. Well, while obviously free-to-play is huge part of community, we all love them, they are the best, but with these personas strictly from a business or marketing focus, I choose to follow the payers mostly. So the personas you will see, there are 5 of them, spoiler alert, they are based on payers, yeah, just paying customers. Those we also like on the same level as free to play. Okay, so why would I even do it? So just wanted to show you what's the perfect persona purpose. Sorry for a lot of P, I hope I didn't spit on the screen too much. So the purpose would be just user acquisition and targeted marketing. You can make creatives knowing what motivates people to play. So basically, I have a persona which gets adrenaline rush when they feel progress. Make an ad which shows you quick progress. Okay, so that's how you could approach targeted marketing out of a persona source. Then you can create a roadmap for your app when you have a perfect persona already ready. Why and how? Or let's imagine that an epidemic or pandemic breaks out and you have to allocate your company resources to different projects. So it's a new situation or some civil unrest, whatever happens. And your current roadmap will have to change, will have to be tweaked. How would you find? Obviously, you have to take KPIs into the equation, but how would you draw the roadmap further? Yes, well, you can take into account what persona types you want to account for first. So obviously the payers, and what areas of your app you could slightly improve or tweak, or even give them a glimpse or a hope of improvement, so they stay with you and don't move further. So they don't churn. Obviously, they can also improve, or they can even create customer service protocols. So what do I mean by that? Is, for example, you have a gentleman who is spewing out F-bombs, C-bombs, and it's very, very aggressive. And then obviously it's an insta-ban, but sometimes on occasion I do check if they spend a lot. And if the gentleman spends, let's say, $15K in your app, you don't necessarily want to ban those, but crafting a persona would help you know how this guy or how this person thinks and how you can approach them so they don't cause distress among the community and they still stay with you, giving you the sweet dough. Okay, so this obviously ties in nicely to recognizing the player pain points, which you can do by knowing what they're after, so you know what will hurt them if you tweak something in your app or if there's an unpopular decision being made, which obviously ties into churn alerts. And if you have people churning, and it's usually a group of them churning, you can see, well, we have clan-based activity, group-based activities, and if you see those people churning, it's easy to act. You just, well, what can you do? Basically, you can either use your social media to introduce some sort of group activity, or get your designers to think of something like that. And so basically what I mean by aiding in churn alerts, if your frontline people see any of those personas churning, they can quickly alert, okay, we need to do something for the group, we need to do something for player progress or whatever. Yeah, so that's why this way you could know more. And obviously damage control, so unpopular decision, they cause distress. I think damage control is always in front line of any mobile app. Unpopular decisions, or basically some F-ups, so something's not working, something was done incorrectly. And now if you know those personas, so you can say, okay guys, sorry about that, we messed up a bit, but we still have this and this and this in the pipeline, which will get them to calm down, and the pitchforks will hide. Yeah, so I think it is very beneficial. I believe that the whining cycle of players in every app is like a matrix. It resets and it's always the same. I think I've been through 4 cycles like that, and I already have my copy paste damage control sentences to say to them what they want to hear, and it always works 100%. Okay, so if you fulfill those purposes, there's only one way you will finish, and that's the Stonks gentleman. As you can even see the flaring eyes, that's how it works, I believe. Now getting into a bit more details, a meme-less slides, I will show you my approach, how I approach creating those personas. But okay, some of you may say, stop, what about GDPR? We do have those people who don't want to share, or we cannot go into the territory of sensitive data. We cannot, but we can come down and just go to your legal, or if you don't have a legal team in your office or in your company, you just consult a legal team, a GDPR officer. I think it obviously concerns EU more than other countries. but I still believe it's very important and beneficial part of the approach. It took us a while, like a month of consulting and getting the GDPRs ready, because obviously I didn't want to invade people's privacy while probing them for the persona purpose. So it's all approved. All the stuff we've done here, it's legal. Yeah, I didn't invade anyone who didn't want to be, and it's all according to the rule of law. Now the details. Okay, so basically 2 types of approach I had. I will just briefly sum them up here and go into details later on. The qualitative approach, so I wanted some quality feedback, quality ground basis for the personas, and that's the user interview. So how did I do that? How did I interview the people? Well, I didn't have to do much. When you're community manager in front lines of a mobile app, they will always chat you up every day, every hour, every minute. I think every community manager knows that. So people start chatting up, and it's up to you how you obviously follow. Just being nice and professional gave me enough data to create some ground rules, ground basis, how I will create the personas. We've also monitored the in-game communication, spot checks, which is in every mobile app. You do it, so you see how people talk, what they say, lots of hours in reading through some nasty and equally kind stuff. We also monitored unofficial channels of communication. I was personally invited there as a player of some clans. They would invite you. We have over 70, over 70 servers with up to 300 people. All of them, I think some of them obviously share the servers, but it's a lot. It's growing all the time. We do check it. It's obviously impossible for a support team to do it. It's unofficial, so basically what is there stays there, but I see somehow how the people that talk. Now, the quantitative approach I took was just getting the feedback from social media, from Discord, Facebook mostly. Social media survey we also did. Then we had closed group chats like payers or high-profile players in the hierarchy of the game. So closed group. I was invited to, or I was even asked by the players to create such groups. So that was kind of them to share. And we ran an in-game survey just to get a bit more data. And at the end of my approach, I decided I obviously have to take into account the business intelligence. So all the data, all the KPIs I have at my disposal. I browsed, dug everything in the game, everything I can find in game. That's a lot of stuff. I won't have enough time to get into details, but let me tell you a bit more about the process. So how I exactly done that interview. So basically, after the interviews I mentioned, I've created with my colleagues, or mostly with Asha, hello, mostly with her, we created the first 5 sketches and persona, and we stuck with 5. Why 5? Why not 3 or 7? I just stuck with 5. I thought 7 is too much, 3 is too little. I think you can have 100 if you want to. It's up to the person who creates them. I think 5 is a nice golden number that we stick with. Then we cross-reference the 5 archetypes with all the data I mentioned, just to see if it checks out. Yeah. So if this group I profiled performs as I think they do. So for example, I said, okay, this group will spend a lot of money on Friday and very little on Monday. This is just an example of the top of my head. Or another thing. Okay, I will get into that later. But it all checks out. Yeah, it checked out. Now we needed a bit more data, so we created the survey. That was the GDPR process as well. It took us a long month to create this survey. We posted this on Discord and in the app in game. I will tell you why I decided to do it this way, not the other. Then I fished for cases that I still actually do it. We have so much data and so many people took part in the survey that it's virtually impossible to do it even in few months, all of it, I mean. But it's basically, I take the survey and I compare it with the BI data and see if it fits. Yeah, I will explain that later as well. And I cross-reference the cases I built with the archetypes, and I created the perfect persona. You will also see it at the end of the presentation. I do have some conclusions. I will go to them at the end of my presentation. Okay, so the interview, How did I do the interviews? How do we create the initial archetypes? We basically talk to lovely gentlemen like this one, well maintained, well groomed, high payers or not. They all chatted nicely. They all, when they chat you up like a solo chat, they're always nice. So they even open up to things I didn't want to know. So I obviously didn't put that in the personas, but yes, pictures included. So we had private Discord chats, Facebook data, Twitter reactions, what they like and not. The support report, because I also do support, so I see what pain points they have, how they react to certain things. They do drop us a lot of info there. And we had the whole team. We sat down, we chat, we drew conclusions from the consultations and from the basic persona we've created. And then I cross-referenced it with the BI data, and hence the top 5 personas came up. But before I will show you all the 5 personas, I will just a small bit of info. It works this way. There's no 5 personas. There's millions, obviously. Each player is unique, but we have to group them somehow. So it works this way, that we have a central persona and satellites. The satellites would share some of the qualities of the perfect type, but not all of them. So obviously, the further there are, the less qualities they share. And sometimes, yes, when you have 2 of them, they would overlap. And those would be hybrid personas. But I know there are a few, but I still didn't research those that well as I've done the single ones. Yeah, so I'm just putting it out there that it exists and I do know of it, but I cannot account for it now. Okay, so these are the 5 main persona types I distinguished. Let me just get the pointer. I think it works. Okay, so the first one I had was the Rock. The Rock is a high spender. These are okay. Before I get into details, these 5 types here are just the initial types before I run the survey. So some of the information here is still, it's okay, it's work in progress. It's not complete. I will show you a complete one at the end, how it looks like the polished type. That's the first one. These are the initial metrics I took into account. So as a good persona practice, I just use a photo to represent what he is. I think it's self-explanatory. Those people are people that community depends on, yes. Here's some quote that would define him, his demographics, personality spectrum, goals, and motivation. These are actually the same. I later fused them. That was just, as I said, that's a work in progress. These were the initial types. Then spending interest, I also changed that. You will see, I refined that a bit more. This is game specific, yes? These are interests outside the game. A bit of info that would help out manage this type of person, yes? Yeah, so there's basically this type, the Rock. He would spend a lot of money. He likes it. He's single, a lot of disposable time, but he wouldn't like his success to be tied in with his spend. So although he would spend a lot, he wouldn't like to show it that much, yes? So that's confirmed. That's one of the whale types we encounter. These are not very common, but they do have a lot of satellites or copycats. So I think this is one of the most important personas. The another one is this, Rex, the king. As you see, he's also another type of whale, but a different one. He doesn't care, or he would even like to have his success tied in with his wealth. Yeah, so that's the main discrepancy, or my main difference between the two. Yeah, so plus this one, you would know the type. You pop into the app, drop half of your staff wages in 3 days, and then disappear. Yeah, that's the type. So they are completely different. This would stay for a long time if encouraged properly. This well, basically, this is a free willy, so he would run as he wants to. But yeah, he will. Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me just do the slide a bit. Yes. Okay. Now another one. Let me go. I will go through those metrics. These are just general ideas, the general descriptions of five persona. I do have close-ups on those later on, so you will see what lasted. Then we have organizer. I think I'm the most proud of profiling this one. And also my friend Asha helped me out with this one, because that's probably the only type a female would play an RPG sword concentric game, and she would spend a lot. Well, depends obviously on her scale of wealth, but they would do. So this basically ties into Psychology 101, that males are preoccupied with things and women with people. So an organizer is a type of lady who would come organize stuff for the community. She likes it. As you see, her metrics are completely different than the kings or the other ones. She's not interested in the pursuit of power, or maybe not that much. She still likes, not she, sorry. There are men like that, but if we have females, it's them. And yeah, so basically that's it. So I think that's a good profile of a woman playing. They do love social activity, and when it dies, they tend to churn. So if you introduce in your app or in your game things that hurt or that are unpopular in her community, even her clothes or her as a persona, in their community, they will churn, or they will explicitly show their discontent. Yeah. So they don't like to brag, but they would pay for nice cosmetics. Yeah, unique cosmetics. That's how you would entice them, and you would see them throwing money at you. Besides those, I think these are very important types. So the reps, and the organizer. Yeah, sorry?
Piotr?
Hey, hello.
When you were working on those personas, are you working with any like psychologist, or like are any people from that area, or like how you define those personalities? Like, are you using specific models? Could you share a little bit about that?
Yes. As I mentioned, I have a background in education, and I did study psychology and methodology and all that stuff, so I do have background valid to state it. And how I judge, I think I'm a good judge of character in general, and I wasn't wrong when I created those. So basically, I see new people coming, and they all fit the types, as well as the old, as I sometimes just see them. So I do read. I did read a lot of articles about psychology as well when I was preparing for this one. I think it is an important part of the process to account for.
Thank you.
Okay, so the three most important types. Then we have another one, a trooper, a nice little guy who would always be there for you. So it's like a regular soldier. They usually tend to orbit around the mid-spend, but there are high spenders like that, as mentioned through the satellite model. So basically, I didn't pay that much attention to them because that's a very broad category. Lots of people go there, different backgrounds, different countries. We do have a lot of those, and even broader one is the cannon fodder, which you feed basically on daily basis. They come and go. They rarely understand the game, but they pretend to. They drop small amounts of money. They sometimes linger around. We love them. They are much needed, like every red shirt guy. Okay. So these were the 5 main persona types. After we've done those, we looked at those 5 types I've just presented, and we said, okay, what are we missing? What do we need more to create a perfect persona? And we've created a demographic survey. A survey is actually for a completely different presentation, because that's over 50 questions. That was a long survey. I thought it was an overkill, but it wasn't in the end, you will see. But it was a big, long process of creating that. It took us over a month. I'm very pleased with the success of it, but there were some flaws and fallacies we've committed while posting it. I will get to that later on. We posted that on Discord, and then we posted that in game. Why? Simply because on Discord there's the highest density of high payers. Yeah. So I had 2 samples, one of the really highest possible density of high payers, and the other one, all of them. Then I obviously saw if there are similarities. What turned out, beside the revenue metrics, these were scalable, yeah, the same, nearly the same, few percentages different, yeah, so basically demographics were just few percentages off, and all the answers as well. So that was very nice, I think very nice piece of info I've got there. And while we posted that, we had this one, 12 minutes completion, as I said, nearly 50 questions, and the completion rate at 82. I think it was because the pandemic. So we posted it early April, I think, and people just sat in home and they just done the survey. So that's why I think it's a great chunk of data, GDPR approved. And that was just the right time. We couldn't pull those numbers with any other survey. Look at the time, it's 12 minutes of writing stuff down. That's crazy. And 82% completion rate. And like 1% of jokers, maybe 2% of that is jokers. Yeah, so 80% completion rate, I would say. So that's, I think that's a success. And how did we do that? I consulted the top players, what they would deem appropriate question, yeah, for that. So we had our pool, their pool, merged that. We've done the survey, and now I was sitting, I still have it, sitting on a really big pile of data to go through. Yes, and that's how I approached it, because it's enormous amount of data with this survey I got. So I had to create an Excel sheet, and I fished for cases. Yeah, so I have my persona, and I think, okay, it's all anonymous, so I don't know their names or anything like that. Nothing, no sensitive data there. Just use my intuition and see if it checks out. And while creating the cases later to attach to personas, I took into account this data. A total spend of an average player displaying those qualities that were in the survey, the time of the play, so how long they are with us, type of phone they have, that's for user acquisition purpose, total time of playing in weeks, that's for me just to count their average spend so I can qualify them revenue-wise. Country of origin, obviously, favorite means of transport, gaming, that's actually a fallacy I've committed. I will get into that later on. The game genres they like, that's a declared number of hours. I can obviously compare a case I have with a declared number of hours. So it's all easily checked. I can easily check this data and verify, although it takes a huge amount of time. Yeah, other gaming interests, their social activity, their music types, what other subscriptions they have, they were all willing to share, why not? Their hobbies, goals in the game, these are goals and frustrations in the game, not in life, yes? So that was tied into our game, and why, so how they approached us, yeah? So what attracted a high spender? How did he feel doing what? They've written it there, yeah. And here's an example of a case. So all the data here, it's here. Oh, sorry, I cannot share some of this info for now because one, it's not ready, and some of it is really sensitive. So sorry for that. But I do have this for you. When I fished those cases, like hundreds of cases, compared with BI data and with our initial personas, and this is what we came up, okay? So this is the perfect persona I was hunting for. I only have time left for this one. I still have only one in this presentation, but I want to leave the carrot dangling, not to show you everything in one go, okay? So I will get into the metrics. I've selected for a perfect type, and that's yes. So that's like a picture that's from our game. So it nicely shows us a champion. Okay, there's a quote that defines him. You give him stuff to do, you just shut up and take his money. Yeah, that's an average age, gender, country of origin, type, whale, single. Obviously, he cannot afford to sustain a family with the amount of time and money he puts in the game. Oh, that's a joke. Yeah, but he's a hardcore gamer. That's a tweaked personality. So that's the guy who would lean towards being an introvert because he doesn't like to show his wealth. He likes to show his in-game power. Yeah, he likes to show that he's wise and a guide, but doesn't like to show off his money side. So he thinks a lot. He is on the verge of either being down to earth, but he also has good intuition. Yes. So he's perceiving things. He can say things off the cuff. For example, I can chat to this guy. Okay, do you think this will work in the game? He will instantly tell me if this will work or people won't like it. Yeah. So they are very good consultants for future updates. They're reserved, so you never see this guy curse in public. Never. Maybe once. And if that in unofficial server, yes, but officially never. Okay, there are obviously exceptions, but as a general rule, yes. So this brag is only about his knowledge, yes, not about the money. That's hence I shifted a little bit more towards humble. But okay, yeah, I have money, but it's obviously I'm very smart, yeah. And he's hardcore to the bone, yes. What other metrics? There we go. Sorry. Okay, but the tags. Yeah, so this guy would use tactics. Obviously, those are app specific. So these are just towards our game, but I believe similar apps could use those some of those qualities as well. So he used tactics, maps, graphs he creates on their own. They have Excel sheets, spends a lot. Gamblers, yes, quite a few of them, they like casinos. Yeah. So you would see this guy, even though he likes progress and spends according to the progress of his character, he would see a silly offer sometimes, he would go for it. And later he will write, okay, oh my God, I shouldn't spend so much. Oh, I shouldn't put so many games into this spin or wheel or whatever. But he's a gambler. He will do it anyway. He will write this every week. Yeah? This gem, it means going extra mile. So he will create guides for his friends, either small scale, clan scale, or community scale. So this works both ways. This persona types will do it, as I said, within his clan only, like a secret knowledge, or just share it with all of them. Yeah. So this stands for going extra mile, a gem for me as well, for us as a company. Impulse buyer, yes. Hence the gambler buys under the influence of whatever he sees. Not really shiny, but okay, this element of an expensive offer. He said, okay, I need to have it this time because it looks well. It would do fine, I will buy it. Yeah, he will later regret or count it wasn't good enough for him to buy, but he will still buy it. And high attention span, those guys can sit gaming sessions 7 hours, 12 hours. I think that was the longest declared one. I didn't actually verify it, but because it's not really verifiable, the app can be left alone for several hours. Yes, not really active. Yeah, but really high attention span. What motivates those guys is sense of progress. When he feels he can progress quickly, he will drop a substantial amount of dough in your pocket. Yeah, and especially if it's this progress is connected with power and dominance, and he feels the return on investment is high. Yes, drop a lot of dough, progress fast, nice, and be recognized socially, but with not rankings of spends, but with rankings of tournaments, yes, where his activity and his gaming skill can be adored by the public. They are often leaders in a clan, but they not necessarily do it. They sometimes content with being like an officer or just giving some suggestions towards a real guild master, so that they're usually up in the hierarchy of a clan. Yes, they at least want to create an illusion of meta. Yes, the most efficient tactic available. They create their own metas. There are a lot of. Sorry, let me just skip it. Okay, the frustrations are basically the opposites of motivation. Okay, another basic info I have is just some sentences that would help us to deal with them, how you approach them when you talk with them, some social activity they display, so which channels they use, they are active, they are guides, other interests outside gaming, this in-game spending, and phone models. These are actually two quite important things I want to draw your attention to. The phone models would need upgrading. I mean, this piece of persona would need updating every 6 months, I guess. When new models come out, you just see if those types took the new models or not. It's easily verifiable, but you can check this out. And this in-game spending, obviously progress related, but this is important. Days most active. I actually, just to draft this one, I had to spend a week of sifting data to see how this type of people, when is their most active weekday, when they spend a lot. And it was non-event, because we have, in our app, we have two types of days: an event, so when all those people fight, and non-event, when nothing happens. And this guy likes to pay when nothing happens, so he can gear up, be ready, and when an event comes, he doesn't spend. That's actually very different from other personas. Yes. And if I give this info to my designers, they can work on some way to stimulate this spend on non-event days. Yeah, I think that's quite interesting, and there's a lot of field to improve in this one. And closing up my cool presentation is just some room for improvement. What could be done differently, what can be done as well, is I think the survey composition was the key component. And basically, I think I've given too much choice in some of the questions. So, for example, when instead of saying, what's your 3 favorite games your whole life, yeah, your top 3 games, I asked them what your favorite genres are, and they had unlimited number of check marks. That gave me nothing. All of them checked 10 types of games, which is rubbish data basically. So that sort of survey tweaks would give me a bit more. So this can improve the metrics of a persona as well, and I can refine them. I was mentioning the satellites and hybrids as well. And if we could add RFM segments to the personas, I think you can create a very, very efficient form of custom tailored offer flow for players. Yeah, and that's it basically. Thank you, guys, for hearing me out. Whoops.
Thank you, Piotr, for the great presentation. Maybe before even we go to the final Q&A, could you share a little bit maybe how often are you kind of updating the info about those personas, and maybe to which extent you think those personas you found are very relevant to your game, and to which extent they are maybe reflecting the typical people in the genre or in the gaming?
Well, I think as I've researched only my app players, I think they are applicable. I'm not sure they are applicable to the genre as well, but we have a very specific game, single hero, with focus on progress and in-app purchases. So basically, I think they obviously apply to similar games, but to RPG genre as well. I haven't done any research. That's gut feeling. Obviously, they would need tweaking, but I would upgrade them only. I think some of those metrics are fixed, like motivations, all that stuff. It's fixed, and the spending metrics would require looking into if there are major things changing in your game. Yes. Because I think that spending patterns change, and then you have to update the persona, but only then. So only when you change something in game significantly, or want to change other spending flows or whatever, and when new phones come out, just to update what they can use.
Thank you. Okay, let's maybe move to short Q&A. So let's invite Julius and Martin.
Maybe before we go to Slido, can I have just one more question to Piotr?
Okay.
Something that's stuck with me is you're focusing on the people, and you're basing the research on the people that you already have in the game and are spenders to you, and it makes sense to find their strengths and expand on it. But do you also look at the motivation of the people that didn't spend with you yet? Like, there may be some hidden gems that you're not addressing. So yeah.
The motivations of free-to-players are the same. The same is just a length which is different between them. And I think I could easily, within 2 days, I can craft those personas into free-to-play players. I just didn't use them in this presentation. Yes. Yeah. So there's no non-player angle accounted for in this presentation. But
yeah, I thought,
and I have it as well, but it's not here.
yeah, I thought just looking at the motivation why they don't buy from you, how to turn them from non-payers to payers.
Yes, I do have it. Do you asking me how to do it? Yes. Yeah, well, they obviously, the people who don't spend, obviously some of the free-to-play who never spend, or those who want to spend, they don't feel motivated enough, and that's where I can give this information to my designers that, okay, this type of person doesn't want to pay, and they can stimulate. We're very successful introducing some passes, like pass models, and they do tend to convert those free-to-plays, but it's obviously it's progress. At the baseline, it's the same motivation. It's progress.
Thank you.
Okay, we have actually the question if we like if guys you will actually allow to share the presentation.
Yes. Do you want me to take out the memes of it and just give a pure text? Or
Okay, so let's agree on like on the final like outcome how we'll do it. But yeah, we will share the presentation. Most likely, either we will add to the survey or we just put on the GameCamp landing page, where this the landing page of this webinar. So actually, maybe this one question to you. There was the question about what is your experience with retargeting? I understand that was kind of around the trying to revive the game. I know that's not really like fully related to topic of your presentation, but like I saw that it was one of the questions asked. So maybe Julius could share a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, we actually we have very little experience with retargeting. We did something by ourselves with Facebook. For example, like we took all those non-active payers, uploaded CSV and tried retargeting them, but it wasn't actually working for us. But if you're like asking like retargeting mobile with another third-party tool, like thing is like we have so niche products that like if you ask, I don't know, 10 people if you like ski jumping, like maybe one of them will like it and the rest of them is not interested. So a majority of the people who register into the game are like this. So there's not even point trying to bring them because like it's so niche that like the broader audience is not interested in that. And also like we don't have that many users that we could retarget, but it looks like with Athletics Mania it could be done, and we are already trying to look for like third party tools that are enables us to retarget.
Sure.
Anything more?
I think thank you for the answer. I think we can move on to the next question that got most votes. That was directed to Piotr. How did you apply these personas to user acquisition and especially Google Ads campaigns?
Yeah, well, that's as I said, it's fairly new. I've only just recently stopped developing them. Well, it's not even finished, but still. And how would I apply this? If you see the motivations, you just create a creative which is based on those. So just show the qualities that would draw this persona out. Yes. So as I said, if it's motivated by social activity, just create an ad where you show it. Yeah. So that's basic.
I think the question was around like are you going to use it, for example, for like creation of creatives, like are you going in some way or like are you connecting them already, or like are you going to connect them with your campaigns?
That's the plan. We haven't done it yet because as I said, it's fresh, but once we do it, I think we will share, and I'm hopeful. I think it will work.
Sure. And actually, there was another question around this female persona. So like, it's just the case of genre or like.
Okay, I get it. It was just I used the pictures of a woman there. it doesn't mean if you actually take a peek at my slides, if I later give it to you, you will see some of those had slashes, male/female. Yes, I only used 1 out of 5 pictures, which actually reflects the game statistics, and I believe it's okay. But I know there are more women players, and I accounted for that in the final personas where I slash which of them can be females as well, but it's a significantly lower percentage in might be app specific for us. Yes, so hence the reflection.
And Julius, it's like to a question to you around those projects, like you when you were showing those digital prototype whole project and the whole process, like there was a few different steps, like what is in average, like how much time are you going to spend, or are you spending with the like all the different steps? It's like rather weeks or rather months? What's right now your current approach around it?
Yeah, so this kind of depends also like on the game itself and what actually your prototype is and like how many people you have in team. Like for example, if you're doing an easy hyper casual, for example, which is just basic gameplay concept, like this could be done in just few weeks, and you can probably even skip the later stages. Like there is probably even like any deep meta or gameplay. But for example, like on the project that I was mentioning, like one of the genres that we are meshing is real-time strategy. So it will be somewhat of a mid-core game, which is slightly complicated. So we have to work on matchmaking, like real-time PvP multiplayer, or even AI, because in case like there isn't an opponent to match. And as I said, like the first phase was done in 1.5 months with just a game designer and Unity programmer. And like since we adopted the OKR methodology in the company from you guys at Google, the next phase is one of the objectives for the OKRs for the Q3. So like within 3 months, the app should be released, tested, iterated, tested again, and the KPI should be evaluated, and the decision to continue or discontinue should be made as well based on those KPIs. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. We have one question from YouTube for Piotr.
Yeah.
Can you? It's about again using that what you know about your players, about their motivation and what drives their engagement. Can you give us an example how you plan to utilize, or how you utilized it for creative, for using it in the creatives?
Mm-hmm. We have it. I do have a vague idea. I don't want to share it now because it's rough. Okay, and well, if we meet again, I think I will be able to show you how we've done it, but that's not ready yet. Okay, so just don't want to spoil the work in progress. Sorry. I'll leave the carrot dangling. Okay.
Sure. And like when you were working on this, like like motivation and the stuff, were you using any like taxonomy? Were you using any model for that?
Yeah. I lots of articles. Just Googled lots of articles. Look at mostly e-commerce articles, how they do personas.
Mm-hmm.
I had very little help because basically no one. I haven't seen a mobile app player persona per se for my genre. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
So I had to create one using gut feeling and what I've read in the internet. But there are loads. If you just type it in Google and select the ones there are many useful. From the top of my head, I cannot think of the right one, but there are tens and tens, hundreds even of those articles. They are all useful, but they do have those factors you can later on use, but you still have to tweak it towards your app, as I did.
Okay, another question again for Piotr is about differences between those personas and their willingness to play, their taste, and their willingness to pay, and the satisfaction with the game. Can you find any? is there anything that surprised you on your research? Like, is there some significant differences or similarities between any personas that you created?
Two biggest surprises was the two types of whales. I didn't know there were two. I thought it was one, and that was completely different people. Yeah, that was a big surprise. Another surprise was small things like, for example, I profiled an organizer. Yes, the lady, but it's also a gentleman as well. So we've profiled that with Asha, and then just we were browsing through, doing spot checks if people are not cursing on our social media, and the people we profiled as those, they all had animal pictures, for example, all of them. So we didn't know that, and it was a perfect moment for me, and I knew there was something there. Yeah, that surprised me basically. So those kind of small things that actually clicked, yeah, that they made sense.
Okay, thank you guys. I think thank you really for your time. Thank you for spending time on preparation of those materials, sharing your knowledge. Thank you, of course, to the audience for spending time with us. At the end, we would like you to fill out short survey that you can see at the next slide. So please actually share us with the feedback. I hope you like it, but please share us with the feedback around how you saw that webinar. Please share with us any feedback about in general that initiative as well. And I hope to see you on the next webinars that will be going over the next weeks. And again, thank you guys, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you. See ya.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye.